Welcome, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Click the subscribe button. We're slowly but surely building this thing up. Packers offseason in full swing. Free agency kind of died down at this point. Draft has come and gone. And, of course, it was in Green Bay this year. So the Packers, to an average fan exiting the draft, you might think like, calm down a little bit, right? Goody gets to kick his feet up a little bit. Rest of the brain trust gets to relax just a little bit. Not really. Packers still have plenty of decisions to make. The Jair Alexander thing is lingering. I did a video on that a couple days ago if you haven't watched it. And now Green Bay's in that deadline period where they have to decide on fifth-year options for two first-rounders that they took in 2022, Quay Walker and Devonte Wyatt. And we have since learned that, per Jordan Schultz, the Packers are going to exercise the fifth-year option for Devonte Wyatt. So he'll be in the green and gold 2025 and 2026. And, of course, they can work out an extension with him during that time if they so choose to. Green Bay, then, per Rob Demovsky of ESPN, noted on Thursday, when I'm recording this video, depending on when you watch it, that the Packers will not exercise the fifth-year option on Quay Walker. And I know a lot of people might sit back and say, whoa, that means Quay Walker's out the door. Green Bay is going to get rid of him. Farthest thing from the truth. To me, it's the exact opposite. Here's bluntly why they picked up Wyatt's option and why they didn't pick up Quay Walker's. It's financial ramifications. That's all it is. With Wyatt's option being picked up for 2026, he's going to make a shade less than $13 million, and it's fully guaranteed for Wyatt. Green Bay was able to, whether you think it's right or not, they were able to convince themselves that that was a financially correct decision to make with Devonte Wyatt. I was fine with it. With Quay Walker, you're talking about an inside linebacker, a true inside linebacker, and he is the Mike of the defense. I thought he transitioned very well into Jeff Hafley's system in year one. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But with Quay Walker, you're talking about giving an inside linebacker a little less than $15 million in fully guaranteed money if you exercised his fifth-year option. And Goody had mentioned back at the NFL Combine that the numbers for linebackers, I think the word he used was wonky. It was wonky. He said the numbers get a little wonky because it funnels in edge rushers too. And we all know if you're building a defense in 2025, your primary, focus, the spot you want to get right is on the edge. You love to have great corners, safeties, inside linebackers, defensive tackles. But look at what edge rushers are getting. Look at what Myles Garrett got from Cleveland this offseason. Look at what Max Crosby got from the Las Vegas Raiders. Wait and see what Aiden Hutchinson gets from Detroit. Micah Parsons in Dallas. If you're a premier edge rusher, if you're the cream of the crop or in that top tier, you are going to get paid handsomely and then some. The best inside linebackers in the NFL still get paid great money, but it doesn't come close to that of an edge rusher. And with this fifth-year option that the Packers had lingering on Quay Walker, the linebacker position, as it's defined, it gets a little foggy because it does funnel in some edge rushers, and so the price is a little bit inflated. So I don't blame Green Bay for not picking up the fifth-year option on Quay Walker, but doing so for Devonte Wyatt. And again, for anybody who saw Rob Demovsky's tweet on Thursday and thought it suggested that Quay Walker, this is his last year in Green Bay, just go look at a couple of things. First, go look at what Goody has said all offseason, dating back to January. A couple days after the Packers season came to an end in Philadelphia in the wild card round, Goody was talking to reporters in Green Bay, and he said he thought Quay Walker had his best season as a pro. He thought Devonte Wyatt had his best season as a pro, and those two names he spoke about specifically because even back in January, he was asked about their future, the fifth-year options, and he said bluntly, these are two players we want to keep around for the long haul. These are two guys we want in Green Bay for years to come. And, it's one thing to play a hand and have it be a bluff. Goody, I don't think, would do it in those circumstances, but if you thought maybe he was leading things on and maybe there was going to be a rabbit pulled out of the hat. I mean, he was asked again at the Combine, and then he was asked at the owners' meetings, specifically again about Quay Walker and Devonte Wyatt, and he just reiterated, we want them to be Green Bay Packers for the long run. The best is yet to come, right, with Quay Walker and Devonte Wyatt. The obvious outcome here is that with Wyatt, you give yourself a little wiggle room and a little flexibility. You're fine paying him I think it's 12.9 fully guaranteed. It's somewhere around there for 2026 with his 5th-year option. Whereas with Walker, you're a little less comfortable to pay right around $15 million or whatever it was with his 5th-year option. But then there's a little more urgency to get an extension done with Quay Walker. And there's no doubting, I don't think there's a soul in the world that's arguing 2024 wasn't Quay Walker's best season in the NFL, and he was really rolling. I think the one thing for me with Quay that I thought stood out in his first couple of years was it seemed like when you were watching him on the field, he was trying to diagnose 1,000 things at once. The game looked like it was moving so fast for him. And for a guy who's just freakishly athletic, has a high motor, has so many things you want in an inside linebacker, there were times under Joe Barry where you just pleaded with yourself when you were watching games, at least I did, where you just wanted them to find a way to just cut Quay Walker loose. Just put him in spots where it's less thinking, just go. Go get the ball carrier. Go get the quarterback. We're sending you on a blitz. And I thought Jeff Hafley did a marvelous job finding those spots for Quay Walker in 2024, where he's the Mike. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And he's playing in a critical, important position in Hafley's defense. And I thought the game slowed down to him this past year when it really needed to. He started adjusting. He was comfortable in Hafley's system. He seemed to really, really settle in. But some of that was the spots that Hafley found where it was let's just cut Quay Walker loose here. Let's send him loose. And you're talking about a guy who had, 4 sacks and 12 TFLs in his first 2 years. So he had 12 tackles for loss combined in his first 2 years. He missed 4 games a year ago and still had 9 tackles for loss, almost as many as he had combined his first 2 seasons. And he had 2.5 sacks. He had 102 combined tackles, 72 solo. Quay Walker was starting to show and was starting to prove hey, I'm starting to figure this out. The puzzle pieces are being put together. And then he suffered an ankle injury against Seattle in week 14, week 15. He missed the final 3 games of the regular season and couldn't really just regain that steam, right, for when Green Bay was playing Philadelphia on Wild Card Weekend in the playoffs. But Wyatt getting his extension, getting his option exercise makes all the sense in the world. It gives you a buffer. It gives you more time to facilitate workout, hammer out, iron out, whatever phrase you want to use, an extension to keep your defensive tackle in Green Bay for the long haul. And with Wyatt, the injury bug bit him at a really inopportune time as well. For Quay Walker, the injury popped up when, I was saying it in videos. You guys were saying it. There were articles being written whoa, Quay Walker has been a revelation in year 1 in Jeff Hafley's scheme. This dude is figuring it out. And then late in the season, boom, injury, misses the final 3 regular season games, and then tries to bring it back for the game against the Eagles. With Devonte Wyatt, first 4 games of the year, first month, he had 3 sacks, 6 TFLs. Devonte Wyatt was far and away the first month of the season a year ago Green Bay's best pass rusher. He was Green Bay's biggest havoc wrecker. It wasn't Rashawn Gary. It wasn't Preston Smith. It wasn't Lucas Van Ness. It wasn't Kingsley Enagbari. It wasn't Kenny Clark. It was Devonte Wyatt. And then he suffered an ankle injury in week 4 in that 4th game against Minnesota, missed the next 3 games, and could not ever regain that momentum because he was a bowling ball. He was rolling down the lane, and you could see the confidence really oozing out of the play for Devonte Wyatt. And, he came back after missing, I think he missed 4 games, somewhere around there, but couldn't ever find that spark on a consistent basis for Green Bay because he was an animal. 3 sacks, 6 TFLs in the first 4 games of the year, ankle injury, boom, he misses the next 3 or 4 contests. But now you have a buffer and more time to figure out an extension with Devonte Wyatt. And I know people are going to bring to the table, well, when will they work out an extension with Quay Walker? And I would say they have other things to do. This isn't a knock on Quay Walker, but if you want to talk about like things to check off the list overall, the first thing they have to do, in my opinion, is figure out what the hell they're going to do with Jair Alexander. It seemed like trade or releasing him was inevitable. Now it sounds like there could be a compromise. I know Albert Breer, in his post-draft NFL mailbag via Monday Morning Quarterback, said he believes the resolution will be Jair restructuring his contract to have more incentives built in for 2025, which to me is a bit curious because I don't know if it was Bill Huber. Someone reported that the Packers had a trade partner lined up. It appeared they liked the compensation they were going to get for Jair, and the only thing holding it up was, well, the team that was trading for Alexander wanted him to restructure his contract, and it was a no-go on his end. Whether that was him, his representation, a combination of the two, it killed the deal, and it's a reason Jair's still in the green and gold right now. And so if he wasn't going to restructure for a team that was trading for him, why would he for Green Bay? You know, like, I get Albert Breer's logic, and what's most fair in this situation? Well, we know when Jair Alexander's on the field, he's a premier cornerback. He still plays at a very high level. But Green Bay's on the hook for over $17 million if they bring him back this year at the current moment. And do you want to bring a guy back with that price tag who's missed 34 out of the last 68 regular season games, right? Like, that's a hefty price. And so what would be most fair is to lace this contract and restructure it and lace it with incentives that revolve around, you know, some statistical measures, but primarily just games played or snaps played for Jair Alexander. But we know the NFL and the business that it is, not everything's going to be fair. And so when you talk about Quay Walker, when could they hammer out an extension? Because as of right now, he is now entering a contract year. I think they got to figure out what the hell they're doing with Jair Alexander first from a financial standpoint, whether or not he's even going to be on the roster or not. Secondly, in terms of just extensions, you know, Zach Tom right now is playing in a contract year. So is Rasheed Walker. So is Sean Ryan. I'm going to get to Walker and Ryan in a second because it ties in with Quay Walker. To me, Green Bay has to just get something done with Zach Tom. He's going to be among, if not the highest paid right tackle in the National Football League. I think that's a deal you want to get done sooner rather than later. I had said last year I would hope it would get done during the season. You're happy for the player, but Zach Tom's play was only ascending. He was only getting better and better even last year. And so you just saw the dollar signs for him go up and up and up and up and up. So Green Bay's going to have to pay a premium price for Zach Tom, but it's well-deserved. He has to be prioritized in this case. Again, it's not a knock on Quay Walker. You need to prioritize getting an extension on with Zach Tom and then looking elsewhere. And looking elsewhere then would include Quay Walker. So when you talk about prioritizing extension for Quay, you would think it gets done this season, this offseason, even before training camp, even before the preseason starts. That benefits Quay because it gives him insurance. It gives him stability if he were to have a serious injury. You know, the last thing you want to see is a guy in a contract year playing well and they blow out their knee or something like that in training camp, or they suffer a gruesome injury in the preseason. And so Quay probably wants to get something done before, you know, training camp, preseason, regular season starts. And from Green Bay's perspective, you certainly want to hammer something out because let's say you don't, you have it carry into the season and then Quay Walker picks up right where he left off for most of 2024. Again, the price tag goes up. So I think financially it makes sense for both sides to get something done. At least before the preseason starts, I would say is like a last resort date. But they have to figure out what they're doing with Zach Tom first. Well, they know what they're doing with Zach Tom, but they just got to hash out a deal and then really figure out what they're doing with Jair Alexander. So I think that's kind of where Quay Walker falls into line. I mentioned Rasheed Walker and Sean Ryan as two other names. To me, again, if you're in any sense doubting the validity or the truth behind Goody's words, which I am not, but I'm sure some people out there will be referencing other situations. Like, do you remember back in January, the season ends, and in the same press conference where Goody says they want to keep Quay Walker and Devonte Wyatt around for the long run, he also praised Josh Myers and mentioned how much Jordan Love, no pun intended, loves having Josh Myers as his center, how Josh Myers had a great 2024 in Goody's eyes. And then we know Josh Myers wasn't even offered a deal by the Packers and left in free agency. So again, some people might reference like, yeah, you know, he said all these good things about Quay Walker, but look what happened with Josh Myers. Maybe you find other situations to reference too. I would note this. Rasheed Walker, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, Quay Walker, Devonte Wyatt. They're all from that same class, which is crazy. Loaded class for Green Bay. All in that same time frame, all extension eligible. And what I would note, I got to look one thing up here. But what I would note is that Green Bay kind of showed its hand both in free agency and the draft with how they may approach things, how I think they will approach things. I'm just looking at that draft class, and it's crazy. Quay Walker, Devonte Wyatt, both in round 1. Watson in round 2. Sean Ryan, round 3. Dobbs, round 4. Tom, round 4. Kingsley, round 5. Walker, round 7. Yeah, looks like it's forming to be a pretty damn good draft class. What I will say, though, Ryan is entering a contract year. Rasheed Walker and Quay Walker entering contract years, right? Well, Green Bay kind of played its hand, in my opinion. They went out and they paid top dollar to bring in Aaron Banks, your left guard from the San Francisco 49ers, to now play for Green Bay. You might say, well, Aaron Banks is going to be your left guard. Right now, Sean Ryan's your right guard and Rasheed Walker's your left tackle. So what do you mean? Well, remember last year, Green Bay's first-round pick was used on Jordan Morgan, a true left tackle at Arizona, and that was their first-round pick. You don't take someone in the first round and say, hey, maybe it'll work out someday. Maybe we'll give him a shot. No, Jordan Morgan's going to get every opportunity to earn a starting 5 spot starting this offseason for Green Bay. Matt LaFleur has already said there will be an open competition at left tackle between Rasheed Walker, who was fine in 2024, and Jordan Morgan. And then Green Bay went out and they drafted Anthony Pelton in the second round. Perhaps a bit higher than many thought he would go, but you're talking about a 6'6", physical freak. They just beefed up the offensive line with one pick. There's a video of him like pushing an SUV that's in neutral down a street. The dude's a monster. Green Bay has visions of using him at guard or tackle. To me, they looked in free agency, brought in their starting left guard for the future. They looked in the draft. They brought in perhaps their future left tackle or right guard in Anthony Belton, and Jordan Morgan was their first-round pick last year. To me, the writing is on the wall for Rasheed Walker and Sean Ryan, whether it's fair or not, whether you think it's the right decision or not. I believe Green Bay is going to let Rasheed Walker go somewhere else, going to let Sean Ryan go somewhere else, and they would prefer in 2026 their starting offensive line to be either Jordan Morgan or Belton at left tackle, Banks at left guard, Elton Jenkins at center, right guard to be either Morgan or Belton, and then right tackle Zach Tom. They invested in free agency and with premium picks in the draft on the offensive line each of the last 2 years. To me, that's a signal. That's an indicator. I wouldn't feel too comfortable if I were Rasheed Walker or Sean Ryan about the idea of staying in Green Bay for the long run after 2025. Now look at Quay Walker in the linebacker spot. They brought back Isaiah McDuffie on a short deal. They signed veteran Isaiah Simmons, who's a safety linebacker hybrid, was great on teams for the New York Giants. That could be a Rich Bisaccia guy that just plays a lot of teams, and it's a 1-year deal. Green Bay didn't draft a linebacker this year until the 5th round when they took Colin Oliver out of Oklahoma State, and he's kind of hey, we could try him at edge or try him at inside linebacker. Point is, if Goody was saying all this stuff about Quay Walker, but still truly about wanting to keep him around, but still had some reservations about it, he'd probably have gone about free agency or the draft a bit differently than what they did. To me, all the indicators are there, signaling the plan is to keep Quay Walker around for the years to come and Devonte Wyatt. You have a little more flexibility, a little more time with Wyatt because you picked up his option, but you didn't pick up Quay's, but don't read into that any more than you should. The blueprint is there. The Packers would prefer to have both around. So they pick up Wyatt's 5th year, decline Quay's. To me, that just says they'll get something done sooner with Quay on an extension than Devonte Wyatt. Give me your thoughts. Let me know what you think. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always appreciate all the support. We'll see you next time.